Fletcher. Now sit back and prepare to be entertained. Welcome to the Dripping Bucket Podcast.
Greetings and welcome to the Dripping Bucket Podcast with your hosts, Krystle Matar and myself, Michael R Fletcher. Today we are joined by Tim Hardie, SPFBO Finalist.
SPFBO.
And SPFBO Finalist. Fine, fuck, I don't like that. Yeah.
Finalist is the key word.
Finalist, that's all that matters. Author of Hollow Bones and some other books, which my brain just lost because I don't even know what day it is. And this week we are going to chat about Kickstarter that Tim is about to launch or has already launched. What's going on?
By the time this episode airs, people will be able to go back his Kickstarter immediately if they like us as much as they say they do, and we'll discover all the frauds who aren't really supportive. Tim will give us a list.
Fuckers.
Yeah, well, that makes it sound a bit more sinister than it actually is. But yeah, anyone's support would be gratefully received, because it's the critical. I think this is going out at that critical kind of launch period, basically, so those early days. So it would be good if the people that said they were going to backed it, because that's kind of how Kickstarters work, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning. What is the Kickstarter for?
Yeah.
Yes, that's a very good question. So it is for my debut novel, Hall of Bones, which is the novel that actually got me into the SPFBO finals in 2021 with both of you, of course, as well. So it's kind of coming a bit full circle with that. And the idea is to begin to turn Hall of Bones into an audiobook format. It's something I've always wanted to do with my series, and as I'm now approaching the end of writing the full Brother to the Eagle series, all 4 books will be out this year. It seemed like a good time to try and get into the audiobook side of things.
Yeah.
But I wanted it. Hall of Bones, I think, it's got some quite key challenges to it. It's got a big cast, and a lot of it is, although there's an action side to the story, a lot of it is about court intrigue, politics, and there's a lot of characters who do a lot of talking. So, me reading that out loud would be grim beyond belief. I did consider it, but I thought, no, that's a terrible idea. And I'm trying to, as I progress in my writing career, I'm trying not to make monumental errors of judgment in terms of
anymore.
That's right. I've learned and grown. So I knew I needed someone to sort of record it professionally, and that obviously comes with a cost. And I think that's the big barrier. The reason why millions of titles get released every year as ebooks and paperbacks through their indie publishing routes and all the other routes. Very few get turned into audiobooks,
yeah.
And the reason for that is that you've got to obviously pay a human being to record it and bring that emotion and that skill. So I've got RJ Bailey involved, who has recorded quite a few book titles I admire, and is a thoroughly ace and nice chap. And I think he's just got the right skill set for me. So the main thrust of the audiobook is basically to fund the costs of paying for RJ's time to actually record it.
Yeah, and then certainly they deserve the hourly rate that they get. It's a lot of work. And a fantastic professional like RJ. I was fortunate enough that he did our Anatomy of Fear project, and so listening to him do Baby Teeth was just astounding. Like I wasn't sure, because I know he generally deals with UK writers and the UK accents, and I was worried. I didn't want to try to force him to do an American Cajun accent if he wasn't comfortable with it. So I was like, just you do it what you think is best, RJ. I trust you. And he delivered. Like he nailed Laszlo. He nailed Davik. He was so good. Anyway, we love RJ here. I guess Michael Fletcher, you're not as familiar with him as I am, but he's fantastic.
Absolutely. I was going to say, I was involved with the production for the Anatomy of Fear, actually getting the novel, the anthology ready, and so I did actually do some of the proofing for a few of the stories that RJ had recorded. and I obviously proved my own, and it's a bit like you don't almost recognise your own writing when somebody does this well. It's like a completely fresh performance of something brand new, and although you know what's going to happen, he just made the character, each of those individual characters, that one-off story so distinctive. So yeah, for me, he was like my number one pick. I approached him, and he said yes, which was actually quite a relief, because otherwise this would be a very awkward conversation, wouldn't it, if he actually hadn't gone through the project.
I mean, I guess I'm surprised that you were surprised, but at the same time, I kind of know what that feels like, where, writers have a very strange type of ego where it's both very delicate, but also kind of bulletproof, that we're willing to keep doing this to ourselves over and over again. So then for the Kickstarter, you're funding the audiobook. Can you tell us about any of the other peripherals that you're able to offer?
Obviously the audiobook itself will be a new thing, so it'll be like Hall of Bones, but in a different interpretation. But I did want something brand new and creative to come out of that as well. So again, kind of building on the experience of the Anatomy of Fear last year, I thought I'll put some short stories together. So I've put together a short story mini book, basically, called Roll of the Dice, which has enabled me to play around with some of my characters. So it's bits of backstory, filling in a few gaps in the novels that aren't quite are kind of left hanging. I've also gone back into some of the earlier history and sort of fleshed out a bit of one of the legends that kind of plays a role throughout the series. So there's so that was good fun, actually. So trying to write those, they're really short. They're only 2,000 words, so that's quite a short amount of words to
really
complete the full story. But RJ's going to record those for me as well.
Oh,
so
cool.
as well as doing the full book, which is going to take a while, I wanted something out quickly. So that'll come out as an ebook and an audiobook in its own right. And if you back the Kickstarter, you can get that early. I'll probably put it on general release as well, because why wouldn't you? But people get a sort of exclusive chance to listen to that before anybody else. Basically, I've really assembled. When I think back on it, I've reassembled the Anatomy of Fear crew, because I've also got Dawn Larder involved to provide some new artwork. So I'm not changing all the Bones artwork, obviously, but A Roll of the Dice has got its own cover that we've kind of got to a sort of a concept stage, which people will be able to see when the Kickstarter goes live. And we also started work on an exclusive poster, so that'll be either a physical product, or we can also purchase and back that to get that as a digital reward if you prefer. And that's been really good fun as well.
Oh, that must be a lot of fun.
Prepping this Kickstarter, I've got to say.
Are you doing everything yourself on the Kickstarter side? You you haven't found one of those, because there are several companies that are sort of offering Kickstarter services where they run stuff.
Fletch, there are hundreds of companies, and I know this for a fact because they've all emailed me, and I wish they would stop. All of them can help. All of them, massively believe in the project. I don't know how they can massively believe in the project from reading 3 lines of it, but they can, and they do. So, I was involved in production for Anatomy of Fear, so I knew what I was getting myself into, but I have structured this in a way that I'm confident I can deliver it.
Yeah,
he says.
Yeah, and
he made many mistakes in his writing career every year without fail. This is probably another one, but no, I'm quite confident I can pull this one off.
Well, it does sound like you're not shipping a whole lot of products, because that definitely sounds like the most challenging part of Kickstarters is the fulfillment. And if you're doing audiobooks,
so you can fund it. So effectively, it's funding an electronic reward most of the time. I have gone into some of the higher tiers. Now, again, I took some advice from a few author friends who said have insanely high tiers of funding support. But don't make it easy for people to back you if they're crazy about your product. Don't like top tier 20 quid. Make it high. So for some of the higher tiers, I've actually then introduced signed books, which is something I've never done before.
Nice.
So I've never done direct shipping before or anything like that. But I figure for those people that maybe go the extra mile, that's something I could definitely manage on my dining room table without my wife divorcing me, which is an issue. With some of these things, I know with the Anatomy, if we Jacob Sannox shipped those, and effectively had a panic attack when crates of boxes of books all arrived at his house. I don't think his house is that big, and it certainly wasn't that big after
Oh
they
man,
finished. So yeah, he had to like go full in for a week to just ship that stuff and get it out there.
just to
So
get it out of
I
our
don't even
house.
give myself that kind of challenge. But you're right, it still
Yeah.
doesn't need even electronic rewards. It should, they take organising and sorting. But
Yeah.
I'm giving myself plenty of time as well, so I'm not gonna, it won't. The actual ebook itself, audiobook itself, won't be ready until October, I think, of this year. So that there's plenty of time to get it right, proof it, and get it sent out.
And then you'll be able to, I think that was the smart thing about the short stories, is you'll be able to offer people something and they get to hear how amazing RJ is going to be in the short story, and it'll build some excitement for the full audio. I think that's really smart. I'm sure it helps where, unlike some of your other first time in publishing, like publishing the book and marketing it, you've had the chance to see it in action before, which must feel like a big difference compared to publishing Hall of Bones at the beginning, where you worked with Holly, and you were really on top of things. I remember being quite impressed with your budget reports that you sent to all of us, just so that we could know what to expect. Not that we could do anything to be helpful, but we got to see it happen. And so I guess what I'm trying to lead into is, what did you learn that was most valuable while you were working on Anatomy of Fear that you're then able to pivot into for Hall of Bones?
I think keep it simple, he says.
Yeah.
I mean, whether that's true or not is remains to be seen. But I think so. I think with the Anatomy of Fear, we had, I think, almost like two competing types of rewards, the electronic and the physical, and that. I just found that quite difficult when I came, because I was one of the guys. I was involved in actual distribution, so I did electronic distribution, and Jacob did physical distribution, and. But we also called our tiers sort of like really random names, which I can never remember what rewards came with those things.
No.
So it was great. I think it worked really well from the marketing point of view, because obviously Holly designed
they were very
that.
thematic.
They had, exactly. They linked in, didn't they, really well with the theme of the story, but they weren't so good when it came to firing stuff out via email. So I have called my tiers very boring things, like a roll of the dice ebook that's the name of the tier, and I think that's for my own sanity. I think that was the right call. But yeah, I think just understanding how Kickstarter works, some of the risks of it as well. I do think it's a really brilliant platform actually to get your work out there, get it noticed by a different crowd, and obviously it's kind of like the crowdfunding platform of choice for creative stuff, isn't it? So it was always going to be my first choice, but it's just understanding how the dashboard works behind the scenes, how you communicate with backers, and what sort of things you need to do to kind of keep it ready. I wouldn't have had the confidence to do what I'm doing now if I hadn't had that experience last year to sort of learn the ropes with Holly kind of leading the way. I mean, Holly Tinsey did a brilliant job.
She did,
organising that, and it became. I think the other thing it became her full-time job last year. That effectively stopped her getting anything else out of the door in terms of novels and those kind of things, because that was the gig. And again, I sort of got to a point where I'd finished. So my fourth book in my Hall of Bones series, Broken Brotherhood, is written, and this Kickstarter is my mental break, not breakdown, mental break to basically get away from that novel, focus on another project, and I've just basically treated it as a full-time writerly job. All my writing energy has gone on the Kickstarter for the last couple of months, really.
It can be both. I think it can be the break and the symptom of the breakdown.
I don't want to break down. I'm really keen to avoid that.
I guess so. I was going to say, maybe you already have, and that's why you decided that a Kickstarter was a good idea, and then now it's just seeing the breakdown through, and then once you're through it, you'll be ready for torturing yourself with writing again.
Yeah, I did say to Holly once we finished, the Anatomy of Fear, we fulfilled it all. I said, I'm never, ever doing this again. And then RJ and I started talking about audiobook options, because I knew this was always going to come round again. We have been talking about it on and off, but I was just never in a position to do it. And I kind of got to the start of this year, and I still wasn't in a position to do it. And I thought, I want to do it. I really want, a lot of people not everyone is in a position actually where they can access my product
Yeah.
as as an ebook or paperback and actually have that full experience. So for me, audiobooks, it's partly about outreach. It obviously increases the
Yeah.
platform, but it also reaches a segment of readers who otherwise maybe can't read or enjoy that series at all.
Yeah.
So it was always part of the strategy. And then sort of RJ said, well, we could do a Kickstarter. I said I'd never, ever do a Kickstarter. I'm not going to do one, am I? Well, we could. That was really what happened over Christmas. Sort of RJ, we just sort of thought, would it be worth doing? RJ's got his own following. All the Bones is on
Yeah.
Brother Two's. He's got his own, solid fans in there. Why wouldn't you? It was really where we got to. And again, the timing was perfect with having written and that draft of that novel. So, but actually, I can give this time and not feel guilty because I need that breakaway from the book anyway. That's so RJ sort of talked me into it. Dawn was straight on wanting to do the artwork again. That was really, really good. And I do love that poster she's done, which is it's like the central characters from the novel.
Okay.
And I sort of want to I'll need to tease that at some point during the campaign, I guess. But it's again, it's not final, but even the half-done version, it's so much better than what I had in my head when I tried to appallingly explain what I wanted her to do. She's just taken that brief and she's worked so hard and absolutely nailed it when it came back. I'm so pleased with it.
Are you gonna get yourself a physical print of it to hang somewhere in your house as a vanity wall?
I think
vanity wall.
Yeah, like the one behind your head. I mean it in a good way.
I like it. When I get the full series of Brotherhood done, I'm going to replace this picture behind me, which is
cool.
just of the Lake District. Basically, with some, I think the 4 books side by side, because finishing a series is going to be. I don't know how I'm going to feel about that. Actually, I'm probably going to feel a bit bereft, if I'm perfectly honest. I think physically, sort of saying that's the full tale told is going to be pretty special, actually.
Yeah, and I mean, you're talking about this year, so it must be pretty well along. Like, have you got your cover for that 4th one
yes,
yet?
I do.
Yeah.
I think it might be the best of the bunch, actually.
Oh, that's a nice feeling where you get to the end and it's like, yes.
Really happy with it. So, I've been working with Anne Hudson, who's an American designer. She's done all the books and, got quite a good, strong colour theme going along. So, I'm just really, I looked at them side by side for the first time. It's like,
oh, wow.
it's just nice to get to those little milestones and think, that's done, and I'm really pleased with it.
But also, it must feel a little bit like moving past a whole era of yourself as a person.
Yeah, definitely.
So you've bought yourself a little bit extra time working on this series by doing the Kickstarter for the audio, which must be nice.
I mean, obviously, it depends a bit what happens, but in theory, the stretch goals, it could be the whole series. I'd be absolutely delighted if it's just all the Bones, and that's what we found. That's the number one goal, obviously. But in many ways, it's. We were talking about the logistics of
the whole series.
He got on board. I think because he obviously saw me as a finalist, and he got on board. He obviously he's done recordings of some of our mutual friends and acquaintances.
Yeah, he did L.L. McRae's novel. Did he do any of the others? I can't even remember now. I know he did True
He's
Disguise.
recorded Holly Tinsley's Vanguard series.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So that again was a good in. But at no point until we said we were doing a Kickstarter and I started doing the promo for it, I said, you do know. I said, have you read the book? He said, no. Well, why would you? Because you're going to be reading it a lot, aren't you? So I suppose, why the hell would you do it? I said, there's quite a big cast. It's about 100 characters in it. And I said, but during the course of the whole saga, there were about 200. Are you okay with that? And he went quiet for a bit, and the answer came back eventually. Yes, he was, but it's going to be going to be epic in every sense of the word. If we can get this to come off, it's in reality, you won't. Some of these people are like named and then die
Yeah.
kind of characters.
Oh,
I,
man.
I list everybody, but there's still quite a big core cast around 50. We're going to need to probably create a library for to make that all come together.
I can very much relate to that, where the narrators that I got through Podium are very, very hardworking, and they obviously take their job very seriously, and so they came to me. I named and described who I thought were the most important characters, which was maybe about 20 characters, which clearly undershot the mark by a lot, because they came to me with a list of about 50 characters. Of this person is named and they're there long enough, we want to know more about them. I don't know. I wrote this book so many years ago, I don't even remember these people, and you do with them whatever you want. No, we'd like to know. It's okay. So anyway, that's to say that I can relate to that pain of slowly compiling a list of these people that you've potentially created several years ago. For Hall of Bones, you said you were writing that in 2018, published in 2020.
Yeah, 2011 that series started off for me. So I suppose I hear them in my head, but then I could hear my characters in my head for the Anatomy of Fear for that short.
Yeah.
And then when RJ did it, now all I hear is RJ's voice.
Yes.
Like it's overridden that part of my brain completely, which I think is a good thing, because I think his voices were better. Is the bottom line.
I find that now, as I'm working on Ash and Stone, I have 2 that have been done by Paul and Felicity, and as I'm editing my pages, I can hear Paul's specific cadence going over certain characters, and I'm convinced it's made me a better writer, because I can anticipate the lines that he'll struggle with because I phrased them badly, and so I'm able to cut those out now and hopefully make his job and Felicity's job a little bit easier later when it's time.
I think it's really interesting, actually, because writing is obviously a solitary profession.
In theory.
So the anatomy was probably the first proper collaborative thing I really did.
Yeah.
Although, I have dabbled in co-writing and stuff like that as well. But it's amazing. As soon as you get somebody else involved at anything, so like Dawn with the art or RJ just recording, it just, I don't know what it is, but I think it just widens your horizons by doing it.
Yeah.
Getting that extra input. And I agree with you. I think it makes you a better writer, exposing yourself to those other kind of disciplines and skills, really.
Yeah, and just kind of knowing, how other people are interacting with your work gives you a new level of awareness. I think that is good in the end. It sometimes it's a little bit terrifying coming to terms with all the people interacting with your work, but I think in the end it's always a good thing for your skill set just to be aware. And maybe you don't change anything, and that's okay, but that's a decision that you've made, and those are good things. So,
yeah, I know I narrated one of my own audiobooks, and that for sure impacted my writing afterwards. Because I was narrating my own writing, and I'd be like, "Whoa, that's a really shitty, awkward sentence," and that fucker got published. Okay, that's not good.
Was it Blackstone Heart, Fletcher, that you did?
Yeah, I did Blackstone Heart, and I think I did one of the City of Sacrifice books.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, terrible.
Not surely not too terrible.
The
suicide right here and now, but
the experience was good. It changed how I wrote, and it taught me to read that stuff out loud before publishing the book.
Instead of
try and help catch that.
Yeah, it must have been a huge commitment, though, because that's part of the problem. Is it just the sheer effort of having to read it out loud, proof it, and put it? I mean, it must have taken you ages.
Yeah. I mean, I have a background in audio engineering anyway, so the recording side was easy. But yeah, I think the studio experience helped a lot because, I'm very used to what we call punching in, which is I just, if I stumbled over a word, I'd roll it back like 2 seconds. I'd start the audiobook rolling. I'd talk along with myself and just drop it into record and sort of keep going. So I suspect I was probably faster than most first-time narrators, at least.
Yeah.
I learning to sort of do voices and stuff was an experience.
Did you do that? You didn't just read it then as a narrate. You actually gave each people parts and different voices.
Yeah, I did like just very gentle, different voices, hints of accents. I didn't want it to be cheesy, but I wanted it more of a dramatic reading than just here's the author reading his book.
I've done it by the length of my experience for this is like doing a 1 chapter reading for various TBR Con years, and man, that is stressful. I can't imagine myself doing that to myself for my entire book, although my books are a lot longer than yours, so maybe.
Oh yeah. I think one of your books is about 3 of mine.
Yeah, so all of that is to say, pay your audiobook narrators one way or another. That's where we all stand on that. Yeah. They're worth it.
No disrespect to yours, Fletcher, but I think it's a job for the professionals because it's not easy. Just as writing isn't easy, and that's a professional job in its own right too. So.
Yeah, and I'm sure, Fletcher, your background in kind of the tech side of all of that made it a lot easier. Whereas for somebody like you or me, Tim, where I wouldn't even know what program to use to, which would just add so many layers to it that it's not worth it for us plebs who don't know what we're doing.
So I think, to be honest with you, I suppose it's interesting. Have you had people narrate your stuff, Fletcher, as well as narrating your own, or is that you already done?
Yeah. I'm much happier having someone else narrate it. Especially when you get like one of the pro guys, the pro narrators doing it. It's like, oh my god, that is so much better. And it's effortless for my part, which I like. I like not doing stuff.
We share a narrator. Paul Woodson did.
That's right. Yeah,
your first Beyond Redemption, and it's actually part of how I chose him because I saw his name on your book, and I was like, "Oh, I know that guy. If he's willing to narrate Fletcher's work, he'll be fine with anything I write."
Yeah, that was Podium bought the rights to the first 2 so far. Just gotta convince them to buy the 3rd book now.
Yeah, now that it's finally out. Oh, you let me take that dig without even squealing a bit.
That series broke me. It's
okay.
That's old. That's an old wound. It's scabbing over.
Oh, that's not as much fun.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. I guess that's our big spiel on how wonderful Kickstarter and audiobook narrators are. Hopefully, by this point, Tim, your Kickstarter is doing very well sometime in the future when this episode airs. I guess that about wraps us. So thank you very much for coming on again for Kickstarter and audiobook narrators. And maybe we'll have to have RJ Bailey on in the near future just to let him talk about how great your book is and whatever other books he's done.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm actually doing a few different podcasts and things as part of the build up to this, and RJ's involved with a few of them. So,
good. That is good.
You will, as part of this broader, broader sort of like information raising kind of exercise. RJ is very much in that mix.
I feel like back before Podium approached me, I was considering funding a Brightwash audiobook, and he was so helpful just kind of talking about his side of it, and I think he's doing a lot of good work just kind of helping us as indie writers figure out where exactly we can break into this market and what to expect and all of that. So maybe I'll have to make good on that promise of bringing him on to talk to him about what he does, because he's a great guy.
Yeah, no, I think he'd be good. That's I'm sure I'll mention it to him. I'm sure he'd be up for that.
Well, thank you very much for facilitating, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for joining us again, Tim.
Yeah, that's been great. Thanks very much.
And everybody go get his Kickstarter if you like audiobooks.
Yes, yeah, please. That's the one takeaway. Ignore everything we've just said. Just follow that one action.
Do that one.
That'd be marvelous.
And then, get them funded. So thanks very much, everyone, for coming by again, and we'll see you next week.